In the infinite silence of space, the stars tell stories older than time itself. Civilizations rise and fall, galaxies expand and collapse, and entire worlds vanish without leaving a trace. But among all these cosmic tragedies, one stands out as a wound that will never truly heal: the destruction of Earth. Imagine for a moment the unimaginable: an entire planet, once vibrant, alive, and filled with billions of dreams, erased from the cosmic map in the blink of an eye. Earth, the cradle of humanity, the home where life first took root and evolved into wonders beyond imagination, reduced to ashes in a brutal intergalactic war. The blue oceans that once reflected the sun, gone. The forests that whispered the secrets of life, consumed by fire. The cities, symbols of human ambition and resilience, crumbled into silent ruins, scattered among the void. It was not a natural disaster, nor the slow passage of time that claimed this home. It was violence, swift, merciless, and deliberate. An attack so devastating that not even the memory of Earth seemed destined to survive. Billions of lives extinguished in silence, leaving behind no last words, no cries for help, only the cold emptiness of space swallowing every trace of what once was. To those who commanded the destruction, it was nothing more than a decisive strike, a move in a greater game of galactic power. But for humanity, it was the end of everything. A civilization thousands of years in the making, broken in a single moment. Earth, once the beating heart of its people, had become nothing more than dust drifting among the stars. The galaxy, vast and indifferent, barely noticed the fall. For the empires that ruled across countless systems, humanity was insignificant, an echo soon to be forgotten. Yet in that tragedy, something unshakable was born. From the ashes of Earth, from the silence left behind, came a truth that no enemy could erase. Humanity might lose its world, but it would not surrender its existence. The destruction of Earth was not just an end, it was the beginning of a story that would echo across the stars. From the moment Earth was reduced to silence, the universe became a graveyard of memories. Picture it: billions of souls, each with their own stories, dreams, and futures erased in an instant. No time for farewells, no chance for resistance. Entire families vanished as if they had never existed, their names lost to the cosmic void. The sound of laughter, the voices that once filled the planet, all gone. What remained were fragments: a broken satellite drifting without purpose, a shattered space station slowly spinning into darkness, and ruins scattered across the cold emptiness of orbit. These fragments became the only testimony of a civilization that dared to dream among the stars. Yet the silence was even louder than the destruction itself. The galaxy barely noticed, as if humanity had always been destined to fade. For the mighty empires spread across thousands of systems, Earth's fall was just another spark extinguished in the endless dark. No parades, no remembrance, not even a whisper of what had been lost. To them, humanity had been a minor species, irrelevant in the vast tapestry of power. And now, with Earth gone, it seemed their fate was sealed, an entire race written off as dust in history. But silence does not mean surrender. For in the ashes of destruction something endured. Among the wreckage and despair, fragments of human life survived. Tiny sparks of resilience hidden among the void, refusing to vanish. They were few, scattered and fragile, but they carried within them the weight of billions of voices that could no longer speak. They were the guardians of memory, the keepers of a legacy. And though the galaxy turned its eyes away, humanity's last breath would not be wasted. The story was only beginning. Amidst the firestorm of destruction, when the Earth crumbled under the merciless assault of alien fleets, a small miracle unfolded. Hidden among the chaos, a handful of ships managed to escape the massacre. They were not the most powerful vessels, nor were they built for war. Many were transport ships, outdated freighters, or vessels repurposed for evacuation. Yet against all odds, they broke through enemy lines, weaving desperately through fire and wreckage, driven not by strength, but by the unyielding will to survive. Each second was a gamble, every maneuver a fight against death itself. Behind them, the planet burned. Ahead of them, only the cold unknown of the stars awaited. Inside those ships, silence was not relief, it was terror. Families huddled together, soldiers wounded and defeated, children staring into the void without understanding that they would never again see the world of their birth. The survivors carried no illusions. They knew what they had lost, and the weight of that knowledge pressed on them like a curse. They had not escaped victory, only destruction delayed. And yet, even in that despair, there was something stronger than fear, the instinct to endure. The need to keep moving, no matter how impossible the road ahead seemed. These ships, scattered fragments of a broken world, became more than just machines. They became arks, vessels of memory, guardians of a species that refused to die. Each one carried not just people, but stories, cultures, and the last fragile sparks of humanity's spirit. To the galaxy, they were nothing. To themselves, they were everything, the last living proof that Earth had once existed. From that fragile beginning, a fleet was born. Small, battered, hunted, but alive. And in their survival lay the seed of a new destiny. Drifting into the endless black, that scattered group of ships slowly found one another, drawn together by desperation and the faint signals of survivors. What began as fragments became something greater, a fleet. Not a mighty armada forged for war, but a fragile gathering of the broken and the lost. Their hulls bore the scars of battle, their engines coughed with every ignition, and their supplies dwindled with each passing day. Yet there they were, a threadbare constellation moving together across the void. Against all odds, these vessels became the last flicker of human existence. Their unity was not born of strength, but of necessity. Alone they would vanish. Together they carried the final chance for their species to endure. Inside the fleet, life was a constant struggle. Every meal was rationed, every drop of water measured with care. Air recyclers strained under the burden of too many lungs, and the walls of each ship echoed with the tension of survival. But in those same walls, hope began to grow. Not the hope of reclaiming Earth, but the hope of carrying humanity's flame into the future. Children's laughter, faint though it was, returned to the corridors. Songs whispered in the darkness reminded them of what they had lost and why they could not give up. This fragile fleet, worn and battered, became a symbol greater than any empire could comprehend. It was proof that even in the face of annihilation, humanity refused to vanish quietly. The galaxy might have turned its back, declaring humans nothing more than dust in history. But within these ships beat the last stubborn heart of a civilization that would not surrender. And so they kept moving, through the silence, through the fear, through the infinite emptiness. Because as long as the fleet remained, humanity was not yet gone. The galaxy believed humanity had been erased, a chapter closed in the endless chronicle of civilizations. And in that misconception lay both danger and opportunity. For the survivors, secrecy became their greatest weapon. The fleet moved like shadows through the void, charting courses away from trade routes, avoiding the patrols of empires that would finish the job if they ever discovered the truth. Every system entered was a gamble. If their presence was detected, annihilation would surely follow. Thus, they became ghosts, drifting through nebulae, hiding within asteroid belts, and silencing all signals that could betray their existence. They were no longer explorers, no longer builders. They were fugitives, carrying the last remnants of a world destroyed. Life in hiding forged a new identity for them. They learned to live without recognition, without allies, without the comfort of safety. Their maps became marked not with destinations, but with places they must never return. Planets that could have been sanctuaries became traps when the presence of alien powers made landing impossible. Every decision was a knife's edge, with survival balanced on one side and extinction on the other. Still, despite the fear, there was an unshakable unity among them. For these survivors understood a truth the galaxy could not. Humanity was not dead, not yet. But with each passing day, the weight of being hunted grew heavier. Supplies thinned, ships broke down, and desperation clawed at their resolve. They had no empire to call upon, no allies to protect them, no home to return to. Yet still they moved forward, because stopping meant surrender, and surrender meant extinction. To the galaxy, they were nothing but forgotten dust. But hidden among the stars in silence and secrecy, humanity's last fleet endured. To the vast empires scattered across the stars, humanity was a memory fading into irrelevance. A species once ambitious, once thriving on a small blue planet, now dismissed as nothing more than cosmic dust. Historical records barely mentioned them. Scholars debated whether humans had ever truly achieved greatness.
For most, the extinction of Earth was simply a footnote, a reminder of how easily life could be snuffed out in the indifferent expanse of space.
Planets fell, species vanished, and civilizations came and went, leaving only faint echoes in the archives of time. Humanity, for the galaxy, had been erased, forgotten, irrelevant. But for those who had survived, the story was very different. Every breath taken aboard the last fleet carried the weight of a mission larger than survival itself. They were not just living. They were bearing witness to what had been lost and preserving the very essence of a species that others had written off. Survival was no longer a right or a matter of instinct. It had become a sacred duty. Every child born aboard these ships, every record of human history carefully stored, every effort to keep engines running and supplies rationed was a defiance of the galaxy's indifference. Humanity's legacy would not vanish quietly into the void. The contrast could not have been starker. To the cosmos, they were dust. To themselves, they were everything, the last guardians of a civilization, the keepers of memory, the bearers of hope. And in that paradox, a determination was forged stronger than fear. The humans who remained would endure, not because the galaxy cared, but because they themselves refused to allow their species to vanish. Every decision, every maneuver, every choice became a testament to the unyielding spirit of humanity. At the heart of the fragile fleet, amid the constant hum of failing engines and the quiet tension of survival, a leader emerged, not by choice but by necessity. He was reluctant, aware of the impossibility of the task ahead, yet burdened with the responsibility of safeguarding the last remnants of humanity. His shoulders carried the weight of billions of lives lost, and every decision he made could mean life or death for those who still clung to existence. He was no hero of legend, no conqueror destined to glory. He was human, flawed and weary, yet determined to endure where others had perished. In him rested the fragile hope that humanity could rise from the ashes, even if only as a flicker against the void. This leader had to make impossible choices, often without enough information, with consequences that could not be undone. Every system they entered required careful consideration. Would it be a sanctuary or a trap? Every encounter with alien civilizations could bring friendship or annihilation. Allies were rare, and enemies were everywhere, waiting to strike at the slightest misstep. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, he could not allow fear to paralyze him. The lives of those aboard the fleet depended on courage and clarity, and the burden of leadership left no room for hesitation. In his presence, the fleet found direction. Where chaos might have claimed them, his choices kept them moving forward. The fleet became more than just scattered ships. They became a coordinated force, a fragile but unified testament to humanity's determination to survive. Even among despair, he instilled a sense of purpose, that survival was not merely about existing, but about ensuring that humanity's legacy endured. In the shadows of extinction, a reluctant leader carried the light of hope, the last guiding star for those who refused to let humanity vanish. Every star they crossed was a gamble. Every system they entered could hide sanctuary or death. The void of space offered no guarantees, only uncertainty. Each new solar system was a potential home or a trap, meticulously set by hostile empires. Asteroids drifted like silent sentinels, nebulae shimmered with deceptive beauty, and the darkness between stars could conceal both allies and enemies. The fleet learned quickly that movement itself was a survival strategy. Lingering meant vulnerability. Every jump through space required calculation. Every approach to a planet demanded caution, and every signal received had to be questioned. One wrong decision could expose them to forces far stronger than they could withstand. Yet the risk was the only path forward. Supplies dwindled, engines strained, and morale hung on a knife's edge. The fleet's survival depended on the courage to confront the unknown, to navigate between hope and danger. Crews worked tirelessly, repairing damage, recalibrating shields, rationing life support, and constantly scanning for threats. Each choice was heavy with consequence, as one misstep could erase the fragile thread that held humanity's last breath together. The galaxy was a labyrinth, vast and indifferent, where each star was a doorway to salvation or annihilation. Through it all, a tense rhythm emerged. The fleet moved like a living organism, cautious but persistent, learning to read the subtle signs of the cosmos. Every encounter, every calculation became part of the strategy of survival. And even as fear whispered in the corridors of every ship, the knowledge that humanity's fate rested in their hands hardened resolve. To endure, they had to embrace the danger, because only by venturing through the unknown could they continue to exist. And in this relentless journey, every light of a distant star carried both promise and peril. In the vast darkness of space, trust became a currency rarer than fuel. Allies were few and their motives often unclear. Every civilization they encountered carried its own agenda. Some offered aid, but most sought advantage, and many hid deadly intentions behind gestures of goodwill. The fleet had to learn the rules of this dangerous game quickly. A handshake could conceal a trap. A friendly signal could mask an ambush. Every interaction was a test of intuition, strategy, and the will to survive. The survivors had no luxury of error, and every decision could tip the balance between life and extinction. Enemies, meanwhile, were everywhere. Imperial patrols, scavengers, and opportunistic warlords scoured the galaxy, hunting any trace of human life. Even minor miscalculations could expose the fleet to annihilation. Communication channels were monitored, jump coordinates intercepted, and hidden threats could emerge from the unlikeliest of places. Fear became a constant companion, and vigilance was essential. Each member of the fleet understood that survival depended not just on skill and strategy, but on the relentless awareness that danger lurked behind every star, behind every system, and sometimes even within their own ranks. Yet, amid the tension, a fragile network of trust began to form. Small alliances emerged, tentative and temporary, yet vital for sharing resources, information, and sanctuary. These fleeting connections were lifelines, and each one strengthened the fleet's resolve to endure. In a galaxy where enemies outnumbered friends and betrayal lurked in shadows, the last fleet of Earth learned to navigate a universe where every star could conceal peril. Every encounter could be fatal, and survival meant being smarter, faster, and more relentless than any foe. And through it all, the shadow of extinction remained, a constant reminder that humanity's fight had just begun. This is the story of the last fleet of Earth, not one of glory, conquest, or triumph, but of endurance, a testament to the strength and resilience of humanity. Through the silence of the stars, through the weight of loss and the shadow of extinction, these survivors carry forward the flame of a civilization that refuses to be forgotten. Every decision, every jump through the void, every sacrifice aboard these fragile ships is a reminder that humanity's spirit cannot be extinguished. They are the living proof that even in the face of annihilation, hope endures, and the future is still theirs to shape. And now, the journey continues. The galaxy is vast, full of danger, mystery, and untold stories. Will the last fleet of Earth find a sanctuary among the stars? Will humanity rise again or fade into legend? The answers lie ahead, among the stars, waiting to be discovered. If you want to follow every moment of this epic voyage, witness the challenges, the sacrifices, and the courage of those who fight to keep humanity alive, make sure to subscribe to Dark Nebula and join the journey. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a chapter of the last fleet's struggle, and be part of the story as it unfolds across the cosmos. Humanity's fate is in motion, and this is just the beginning.